So we're up to chapter 5, verse 14. Va'avaru ruach kinah, and the man gets upset. The kineyas ishto, and he warns his wife. V'hi nitma'a, and she becomes ritually impure. Or avaru ruach kinah, or so the man gets a spirit of jealousy, the kineyas ishto, and then he warns his wife, v'hi nitma'ah, and then she became defiled again, the kineyas ishto, v'hi lo nitma'ah, and she had not become defiled. Hold on one second, Judah is asking for the link. I mean, they're gonna. Okay. So we just sent him the link. Okay. So what does Rashi say? Verse 14. Kodim lastira. Before she became secluded, he warns her. The ruach kinah v'kineh, a spirit of jealousy, and he warned her. Pershu rabosenu lashon hasra'ah. It's an expression of warning. Shemasreh ba. He warns her. Al tisteri imishponi. He says, do not seclude yourself when such and such a person. That's how he warns her. V'hi nitma'ah. And she became defiled. O avarav. Rashi says, Komar hu hisraba. He warns her, va'avral asraso. And she violated his warning. Ve'en yadua im nitma'ah imlav. And it's not known if she became defiled or not. Verse 15. Ve'ivia ish es ishto ala kohen. And the man brings his wife to the kohen. Ve'vias karbana ala. And he brings her korban for her. Asirisa ifa, a tenth of an ephah of kemach sa'orim, of barley. Usually every other offering is wheat. This one is barley. Yitzok olav shemen, and there's no oil. Usually the grain offerings have oil. Yitain olav levona, and there's no frankincense on it. Ki mechaz kinaos hu, because it is a offering of jealousy. Minchas zikaron mascaris avon. It's an offering of remembrance, a reminder of iniquity. Rashi says, Kamach shelo yehi misoas. It should not be from flour. Se'orim barley v'lo chitim, not wheat. Hiasta maaseh behema. Why did she get animal? Why did she bring an animal a barley offering? Because she acted in an animalistic manner. The karbana macho behema. So her offering is the food of animals, which is barley. Well, yitzok aleh shemen, no oil on it. Shloyeh karbana mu'udar. Her offering should not be elegant. Shemen karoi or, for the oil is called the light. V'hiasta b'choshech, but she acted in the dark. So therefore, she doesn't have the oil added. We don't put frankincense in her offering. The matriarchs are called levona. As it states, El Gevat Halvona. It says in Song of Songs, to the hills of the Levona. Vihi Pershami Darkim, and she's separated from their ways. So the matriarchs are referred to as the frankincense hill. And so since she's separated from the ways of the matriarchs, she doesn't bring a frankincense in her offering.
And this is if she's suspected but no proof. So if the husband's paranoid, she still has to do it.
No, it's not just, there's proof that she was secluded after the husband warned her not to be secluded with this man. So there is witnesses come forward and say you were secluded with this man. after you were warned not to be secluded.
Okay.
So she did do a violation, but it's not clear that she did adultery.
So the witnesses kind of just basically go in and some.
They
space
saw her secluded in a space for the amount of time where she could sin.
Yeah.
So she did this in violation of her responsibility not to be secluded. Yes, Jerry.
This meal offering, is it burned, or does the Kohen eat it, or something, or does somebody eat it?
So this is an offering that is, well, she's going to drink the bitter waters, but the grain offering, the pasuk is going to tell us that he takes a kamitza, but he doesn't eat it. It doesn't say it's eaten. It doesn't say it's eaten.
It's burned? It's burned or thrown away?
It says he burns it on the altar.
Ah, okay. Thank you. Another question.
Wait. I assume so. It says in the next pasuk, in pasuk 26, Viktira Mizbecha, and he brings it as on the offering. That's the reference to it being burnt.
Okay. In our 21st century, we have the concept of equality. The Torah speaks about her being suspect. What about her husband? Although he's allowed 4 wives, what if he goes hunting for an assignment with a 5th or 6th woman? There is no punishment for that for the man. Only the woman gets punished.
So that's a good point, but by biblical law, a man is allowed to marry multiple wives, so that's not called adultery. But the Talmud does point out 2 things that are relevant here. First of all, if she sins with a man. So the man who she sinned with did commit a sin, and when the bitter waters affect her and they cause her to blow up, the Talmud says that man also blows up at the same time.
Ah, good.
So that's the man who she committed adultery with. Now, about her husband, the Talmud says that if her own husband had committed any sexual sin at any point in his life, or if his children had committed any sexual sin at any point in their life, then the bitter waters will not be effective against her. And that's why the Talmud says we don't do the bitter waters anymore, because we are too much sinners nowadays. So that's why the Talmud says we don't do this anymore.
Uh-huh. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. And that idea that if the husband sinned, if the bitter waters don't work, appears 3 times in the tractate of Sota. Appears in the beginning, the middle, and the end. Can't miss it. I mean, you can miss it, but you shouldn't. So then it states, Hikriv osa hakaway. Oh, wait. Back in the Rashi. Kimechaz kenoso. It's a mincha of jealousy. Hakemach hazeh, this flower, kemach hashon zachar. It's masculine. Minchas kinaos. Me'oreres aleha. It arouses against her shtei kinaos, 2 jealousies. Kinas hamakom, and kinas habal. This offering arouses against her 2 jealousies: the jealousy of God and the jealousy of her husband.
Well, what? Why is God involved in this?
God is going to punish the woman who sinned by committing the adultery.
Oh yeah, but why does Rashi use the terms jealousy of God against her?
Because why is it called minchas kinaosu? It's a meal offering of jealousies, implying that there's two subjects who are jealous. So Rashi is telling us not only is the husband jealous, but also God is jealous on behalf of the husband.
Well, yeah, I don't follow that reasoning, but okay, let's go on.
All right. Mikrivosa Kohen, and then therefore the Kohen shall bring her near. Hashem. He'll stand there before God. Wakacha Kohen Mayim Kedoshim and then the Kohen shall take the holy water in an earthenware vessel, and from the earth that will be on the floor of the Mishkan, the Kohen shall take it in a sana lamayim, and he shall put it in the water. Rashi says, Mayim Kedoshim, Shekachu Bekior, they sanctified it in the basin. Lefisha Nasa Kior, Minachoshes Marota Tzavot. Why are they putting this holy water? He's taking the holy water. Holy water. What is this holy water? This is water that have been consecrated in the holy basin. Why are they taking water from the basin, which is at the entrance to the temple? So let me just point back. The basin is the vessel which the Kohanim would wash their hands and their feet with before performing the temple service. So why would they take this water to give her to drink? So Rashi says, because the kior was made minachoshes maros hatzavos, from the mirrors. They used to have, their mirrors used to be just copper, just shiny copper. So they took those shiny mirrors and they used them to make the basin. And those are the holy women who served maros hatzavos, the women who served in the temple. They took their mirrors and made the basin. And this Sota woman separated from their ways. For these women used to have relations with their husband under the apple tree. But this one behaved scandalously with another, tibadik bo. Therefore, let her be tested by the kior, meaning she's deviated from the ways of the women. Everybody follow that?
We learned about this when the women donated their mirrors for the Mishkan. That was in earlier, correct? This is just another thing.
This was exactly the back cross reference to Exodus 38:8. Rashi there talks about the fact that the women were the ones. It says it a couple of times in Rashi. The women were the ones who inspire their husbands with their mirrors, and they said, "Look, I'm cuter than you," and that's what they flirted with their husbands too, when their husbands had given up hope of making a larger family. So this is the war. So since she deviated from that path, we're testing her. Rashi says, in an earthenware vessel. He is shkata at a noaf yaim meshubach. She gave the adulterer fine wine to drink. How do we even know that? She gave the adulterer fine wine to drink.
It's just like artists have a good imagination. Rashi himself was a winemaker, so he knows what he's talking about.
Rashi was a winemaker. There's no evidence of that.
Okay, that's what I heard. So
what?
That's what I heard. I just
no. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. the Dr. Chaim Soloveitchik argued as follows with respect to Rashi being a winemaker, because there was a professor, Agus, who commented, and this professor said, he's a professor at Yeshiva University, and he said, because Rashi says in one of his writings, I can't write like now because it's so busy because everyone's pressing the wine. Everyone's harvesting the wine. So Agus writes, oh, that's because Rashi was a vintner. But Dr. Soloveitchik says, no, it just means it's busy. It's like the running of the bowls. Everybody's hectic in the house then. I don't have time to respond. So Dr. Soloveitchik writes in one of his footnotes, Rashi might have been a vintner, but he just might as well as easily have been an egg salesman. There's no evidence that he was either. So that was his comment. So that's what he said. I think he made his point in a sharp way.
I didn't understand the comment of Soloveitchik. He
Dr.
said he
Soloveitchik
could be.
said
he
he's
could be a
basically
vendor
saying- or an egg salesman. He's basically was saying there's no evidence that he was an actual vintner.
Yeah. He said, Soloveitchik said, Rashi could have been a vintner or, and I didn't understand your or. What's
He said, or he might just as easily have been an egg salesman, meaning he could pick any profession in those days.
I see. Okay. Okay.
Could have been anything. He
Yeah,
just
right.
randomly picked an egg salesman because
Right.
Rashi talks about eggs at certain points in in his commentary. But
Okay. I didn't hear it.
he was saying no evidence.
Okay. Thank you.
And sometimes these things get into the lore, and then people start saying Rashi's a vintner. Also, because Rashi came from Champagne, and Champagne's associated with
Actually, what I'm seeing, he came from
Troyes.
right? And evidently, what I'm reading on the internet is that the soil around Troyes is not really great for wine.
Well, that's the other thing. That's what happened. So I was saying that I was not saying that that's the reason. I'm saying he came from Champagne, so people started saying, "Oh, he's a wine salesman." But Rabbi Dr. Soloveitchik says, first of all, they didn't start selling champagne until like several centuries later, and actually, he went to that town that Rashi was from, and he tested the soil, and he said the soil's rather chalky and therefore not appropriate for wine.
So he made the discount.
The point, what I'm trying to say is, I doubt Rashi was a vintner. There's no way any man who is this prolific a writer that did anything other than being a scholar. I mean, he just basically wrote day and night. It's hard to imagine he did anything else. That's anyway.
Who supported him though, if he was just a scholar?
Well, he might have been, by the way, you could be a businessman and do a deal here and there and sell some stuff, but to be a farmer is a lot of work.
Yes.
Okay, so now we go on. And that's enough of my speculation. All I know is we don't know what he did for support. He doesn't tell us anymore. So it says, Ki minchas kinaosu. Okay, all right. Then it says they take it because she fed him with the wine, because it's mishubachim in very fine glasses. Lefikach, therefore, tishtem mayim amarim b'mekida bezuya. Therefore, she drinks the bitter waters in a lowly cup shalcharis, because she fed him in the fancy wine in fancy cups. Therefore, she drinks the bitter waters in a lowly cup. Ve'amida kohen es ha'isha lefnei Hashem. And the Kohen shall stand this woman before God. Ufaras rosh ha'isha, and he removes her head, uncovers her head, v'nasan al kapela es minchas zikaron, and he puts on her hands the mincha of remembrance, minchas kinaosi, mincha of jealousy, uviyad Kohen yiyu mei amarim amarim, and the hands of the Kohen shall be the bitter afflictive waters. Rashi says, V'mida Kohen. And then the Kohen shall stand there, V'alo kvar ne'amar, V'mida of Hashem. It already says that he's standing there before God. Why does he stand there a second time? Ela masina you osami makom lo makom kedeu yaga v'titaref tata v'todeh. So the Gemara tells us, Rashi cites the Gemara, he used to take this woman all around, lead her around to try to tire her out so that she becomes confused and confesses. We're trying to force her into confession so she doesn't drink the bitter waters, even though the waters have already been mixed at this point.
If she confesses, does she not have to?
If she confesses, she doesn't drink the bitter waters.
What do they do then?
Then he divorces her, and that's that. But she doesn't drink the bitter water, so she saves her life. Ufara, you uncover her head. Soter as kliyas sarah. We release the braid of her hair, kedela vazosa, in order to degrade her. Mikan of Nos Yisrael shegiwa yarosh kenaylahan. From here we see, for the daughters of Israel, that having an uncovered head is disrespectful for them. Because all they did here was undo her braiding. So how much more so was it disrespectful to uncover their heads? This is the source in the Torah for a woman covering her head. Lifnei Hashem, before God, Bishar Nikanor. And then this happens at the gates of Nicanor. Where are the gates of Nicanor? The gates of Nicanor are the gates right outside the entrance into the courtyard of the temple. Rashi says, Hushara Hazara Mizrach, which is the eastern gate of the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash, in which everybody enters. So basically, if according to this Rashi, the gates of Nicanor, so if you see where the western wall is today, on the opposite side of the Temple Mount, opposite from the western wall, would be the eastern entrance to the mountain. And there, before you go into the courtyard of the temple, you would walk through these giant gates, which would be called the gates of Nicanor. And then you would be in the courtyard of the temple. So she would drink them at the gates of Nicanor. And then this was the most public place because that's where everybody came. Even those people who couldn't actually enter into the courtyard could come to this place. Yes, sir. Jerry?
Yeah, yes. I am really confused about the uncovering of the hair and making that a sign of embarrassment. If the Torah was going to say women have to wear a head covering all the time, the pasuk should have said the Kohen stripped this shawl or kerchief away from her in order to embarrass her. But the pasuk really says to embarrass her, he has to get down into her hair and separate, pull the braids off. So
You're saying it's not a strong proof that she has to cover her hair. Okay.
pardon?
Okay, I hear that argument.
Okay.
Making her like as if she's not married.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, but Jerry's arguing about a point that I said that this was the source that the Gemara tries to prove that the women have to cover their head. And so Jerry says it's not a strong proof because it doesn't say she removes her hat. It just says she uncovers her head. It just uncovers the braids.
Well, if you're uncovering the braids, you're definitely not, don't have a head covering on top of it.
No, I mean,
That it's
not
like a head covering
necessarily.
off to unbraid.
Not necessarily, not if the braid is from the back or the sides, but yeah, but I see your point,
I have
Bill.
another question.
Yeah.
Is the bitter waters, is it dust? It says it's the dirt from the floor of the sanctuary and water, that's it? That's all that's in it?
And one more crucial thing, the passage from the Torah. Remember, we did this in Tractate Sota, that they would have water in the temple, they would have earth in the temple, which they would dig up. They would put that in the utensil, and they would also mix it with the passage from the Torah, so the ink from the Torah and the parchment. So in essence, question is, the bitter waters that she would drink, the waters were mixed from the parchment. That was an animal. It didn't have to be slaughtered, the parchment. Generally speaking, the parchment that we use to write a passage on doesn't need to be a slaughtered animal. So now this woman is eating non-kosher.
Adds to her embarrassment, I guess.
Yeah. Never thought about that before. Never thought about that. Okay, so we'll do.
You
Yeah,
mean, you mean God's name is not on the cloth, it's on paper, it could be written on paper or some
God's
other,
name is written on parchment, but that parchment comes from an animal. And that
right?
animal, I assume, was not slaughtered, because nowhere do we see that to write a Torah, you don't need to write it on an animal that was slaughtered kosher. It could be on any animal. So now,
Mina mutal berficha. You're not allowed to
What?
write on dog skin or on horse skin.
no, you can write a Torah on a kosher animal, but the animal doesn't need to be slaughtered according to Jewish law. It could just be like from a nevela.
Oh,
Okay, but the ink is not
The
the
ink is
animal.
vegan, but
and-
the ink is vegan, but the
How-
point is it's being mixed with the parchment.
Yeah, but how much time? Like the parchment is definitely batel v'shishim. How much of the skin actually dissolves into the cold water?
I don't know, but
Not
you
quickly.
can't aim it vatlin isur l'chatchila. You can't
Uh-huh.
stick it in there saying it's going to be bottle.
You're right.
Anyway, I just thought of that. I'm gonna text my friend and see what he thinks about that. And okay, we'll have to stop here for another mincha. Shkoyach.
Yeshua K'noch, Mother.
thank you.
Thank you.